Welcome back. I'm Alfred Lambremont Webre, and it's a great privilege today to be with a colleague and a friend, George Kavassilas. Welcome, George.
Thank you, Alfred. I really appreciate the opportunity here today, and it's great to be working with you again.
And we hadn't been together for a while, but I know that the last time that we spoke, we were talking about the issue of dimensional ascension.
Yeah.
And that's an area that I've been working on as well. And so we just approached it right prior to the interview, and you have a very interesting approach to the whole subject. So why don't we start there?
Okay, I'd love to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
So for me, it seems like there's, a very common narrative that has been expressed in the world, and especially in the fringe community. And the narrative is that we are raising vibrations and that we are going to a higher vibratory reality. And that's an interesting way of thinking, because it's a way that I used to think a lot. Like, I was very much in that hierarchical mindset and structure, because it is a mindset, it is a view, it is a perspective of viewing different expressions of life in that hierarchical sense, from a hierarchical point of view. And while that has its great advantages, it also has its disadvantages, and it also has traps. So we were looking, in the lead up to 2012, there was a strong build up to, we're going to ascend and everything's going to be beautiful and it's all going to be about love and we're all going to be burping butterflies and farting rainbows, so to speak. And, and the New Age community has really continued on with that. And, a lot of my work has been challenging for a lot of people, liberating for many others, I have to add, is the traps of this New Age religion that has been created on the planet, which is a metamorphosis of the old religions. And it brings in other elements of other religions, and it's kind of like a mishmash and a blend. But the background theme is the same. It just hasn't changed from the dogmatic religions. It's kind of like the same guy with a different suit on. It's the same girl with a different dress on. When we go into the deeper aspects of it, it's all about, okay, so now instead of God taking you to heaven, now we're going to ascend into the fifth dimension. Yeah, so the concept is exactly the same. It's just marketed differently. And so my languaging around that now, to be brutally honest, for me is the Ascension Deception. Because it's all still part of what I call the God Matrix. And, we'll get into that a lot later on, but
okay.
It's a very deep and profound subject. And this is why I shared about the comment earlier about the feedback I get for people that are feeling completely spiritually liberated from coming across the information that I share. And everything that I share is from direct experience. I'm not a researcher, Alfred. I'm not an academic. I'm what we would call a simple person. However, my experiences in life are well beyond the ordinary. I really have had an extraordinary life. And the authorities know I don't sit here, I don't do research. I don't at all. I don't look anything up. and they monitor, you know, everything that we do. So they know I don't, and they're scratching their heads saying, well, either this guy's, you know, living a fantasy, he's totally delusional, or he really has had these experiences and what he's sharing is actually, you know, something to take into consideration, something to be considered. So with this Ascension Deception that is taking place, I don't see and I don't experience this reality in that way. In my relationship with my mother planet and my relationship with the sun and the solar system and my relationship with the galactic being and my relationship with the universal creator, I'm having a different experience to what the narrative that's being propagated into the human psyche is actually saying. So my direct experience is different to the narrative. Even though there's this really interesting overlapping at times, and I'll go as far as saying a deliberate blurring of the lines. Very clever how they go about it. And I'm happy to get into the they, who is they as well. So we have, in my experience, instead of us moving to another dimension, what is happening here is a collapsing of all the dimensions and a collapsing of all the timelines. So what we're talking about is integration. We've had this incredible journey through this universe, and everything that we have seen, everything that we have done, everything that we have been, has all been focused into this reality. So the more people study this reality, the more they realize that this is a fractal reality. And there's this flow of energy that's continuously flowing into this reality. It's pouring in. It has been for a long time. And it's like this awareness and attention comes into this reality, and then what happens to it, you know? And there's this incredible alchemical process that is taking place here on a universal scale. This is the most powerful crucible in the universe, is this planet, because it is a direct fractal of the entire universe itself. And I know for you and I, this is take 3. I hope you don't mind me mentioning that.
Right, because we were attacked by all sorts of outside technological attackers, put it that way.
Oh, it was horrendous. I really am amazed at the other 2 times how we tried to make it happen, and it was just crazy. And I've been doing a fair bit of work with people behind the scenes in the world of technology. There's, I'm just going to go off on a little bit of a tangent here. You know, we need to understand the level of AI imposition into this world. And in the world of AI, you know, you're talking about a living thing. Electricity, if you really know electrical energy, it's living consciousness. Everything in the universe is living. So Skype, for example, within itself has become a living organism in its own right. Zoom is a living organism in its own right. So when we actually connect in with these beings and we readdress our relationship with them, we reset the boundaries with our relationship with them, which is what I've been doing. Then we can clear the slate and we can have a nice, beautiful, clean connection like we're having now. So it's a different approach to what other people do, but it's for me, it's working from inside the heart and working from the inside of life, you know, really, really connecting deeply and working it out between each other. So this ascension thing, we've got the collapsing of all the dimensions because of the fractal nature of this reality. And I would really love to explain to people who are not familiar with my work, others who are familiar will know this, is the remembrance of how we built the galaxy. Would you like me to go through that with you?
Please do.
Because I feel that this is really key. This is critical. And I'm looking forward to the day where I can work with somebody who's like a movie producer or somebody who because if we can create something, even if we present it as a fictional story, the actual remembrance, the triggering that this provides in people is colossal. Because what I'm sharing here, it's not just the forgotten knowledge, it's been the forbidden knowledge. Like, this is not allowed to be known. And you'd think through all the ET interactions that people have had, think of how many abductions, think of how many ET interactions that have taken place, think of all the so-called channelings that have been happening for how many years on this planet. Yet, this body of knowledge has been left out, which is, once the understanding of the way this reality has been created, then the purpose is understood, then we understand where we've come from, then we understand who we are and what we're doing here. And these are the primordial questions of life. The absolute primordial questions of life. It's what we've wanted to know for how long? Eons of time. Now, I don't profess to know everything. Absolutely, I don't. But there are some things I do know through my direct experiences and through the relationship I'm having with my humanity, with my planetary mother, with the sun, with the galaxy, with the universal creator, and with my infinite nature. So there was a long time ago, because once we understand this as well, all the pieces of the puzzle will just fall into place. It explains so much, Alfred. It explains why there is these groups that have that kind of interest and why they're imposing their agendas on Earth. Why is that group here? You know, this is we're getting into not only the exopolitical arena, we're getting into the cosmopolitical arena. As to why you have these different groups, different empires with different interests, and why are they coming here and implementing their agendas the way they are. So once we have the background knowledge of the structure of how things are, why was this galaxy created, who created it, why was the solar system created, who created the solar system, why was this planet created, who created it, and why, and you know, what's it all about? What's the intention behind that creation? Because every time something is created and manifested in this universe, we enter into what's called natural law, law spelt L-O-R-E, and that is, to me, the cohesive process of co-created agreements between beings and the universal creator and the prime creators of all the realities that we're entering into. And it's a massive co-creative process that takes place. There is nothing in this universe that is outside these co-created agreements. Nothing. Nothing exists in this universe outside of that. Everything that is created is within the parameters of co-created agreements on a soul level. Everything. So once we understand that as well, Alfred, then we got to step out of victimhood, that victim mentality, and that stops us from playing the blame game. And we've got to own everything and take responsibility for it. So see, the whole environment changes. The emotional environment changes, the mental environment changes internally. Because now we're functioning from a place of being a creator, which is what we are, each and every one of us. We are creators. So we're not victims of circumstances, yeah? And everything that we experience in life is because we chose it from another level. So sometimes our ego constructs within a given reality doesn't have the full knowledge of the bigger reason why it is there. But once we can understand that there is a bigger reason why we're here, that we can somewhat surrender to that. And it's not about surrendering to something outside of yourself. It's surrendering to a greater aspect of your own being, which that greater aspect then is in unity with everyone and everything else going on. So back to how the galaxy was created was there was a call that went out, a vibrational call, because through eons of time there was so much activity that went on in the grand cosmic arena. We got to the point where all possibilities and outcomes were finally exhausted. And there wasn't really much anything new going on. There were just slight varying expressions of everything that had come before and been done before. And what was new, though, was kind of like a new group was rising into power that wanted to seek dominance over everyone and everything in the grand cosmic arena, in all its dimensional levels. And the grand cosmic arena, too, within itself, is a paradigm of reality within this universe. And the foundational expression of that is an expression of the universal creator itself, but is a alter ego of another aspect of the universal creator. Does that make sense to you? So we have this area in the universe where everything is in complete unity and harmony. And then we have this massive domain in the universe where things are allowed to, so still managed, to run free to a degree. Yeah? It's still managed though. But there's a lot of do what you will and let's see what happens sort of attitude by the creator, because it's about adventure, right? It's about the spirit of adventure in life. That's one thing. When I had my experience in 2003 and I reintegrated with my soul and realized that, and that part of me, the soul that I speak of, is beyond spirit and beyond consciousness. So I just want to get the languaging that I'm using is slightly different to what other people use, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, because soul, to me, soul is, I'm whole. It's a vibrational field of energy that is unified, sanctified, and divine, and untouchable and uncorruptible. Untouchable by anything of ill intention. It's just not possible. Spirit is a sharper energy that is a projection from soul into the creative process in the universe. And consciousness is of a vibrational field. It's mind energy. So on this level of reality, we have what we call our heart and our minds. Yeah. And this translates to soul, this translates to consciousness, cosmically speaking. So consciousness is mind energy, but it's cosmic mind energy. That's why it seems so fantastic when we connect to it. And that's why it permeates through all realities, because mind energy is its source is intention. And it is through intention into the mind field. And the mind field is the interface from intention to the actual creative process in the universe. So spirit and consciousness to me are projections from soul into the universe. And soul to me is the oversoul, is it's hierarchically speaking, it's the highest aspect of me expressing itself in this universe, and it's the part of me that's completely one and unified with the creator of this universe. Now, both the creator and me exist beyond its universal expression, yeah, into the infinite nature of life. And I know I've gone off on a big tangent, but it seems to be the flow of energy. So we'll go into the infinite nature of life. So in the infinite nature of life, there is no one anything. There's no totality. It's open-ended. So I've never been created, which was the statement I had to make when I was taken to the Vatican. I had it out with 4 senior officials in the Vatican in regards to their God, because they're monitoring me and everything I do. So I get picked up in a UFO craft. They've got their own fleet. And I get taken there in a meeting, and we were in a small little, theatre room. It was quite dim, not too much light in there, funny enough. And there was 2 that were dressed in robes. They looked like cardinals. And then there was 2 that were in suits, no senior officials. Because you have the public pope, then you have the black pope, and then you have another layer of control in the Vatican behind that. And that third layer of control is the one that interfaces with interdimensional beings and extraterrestrial life. Mm. Okay, so that's the hierarchical structure in that system. So they took me there because they were really concerned with what it is I'm saying, because I'm actually exposing their God for what it truly is. right? So they wanted to feel me out on a personal level, get closer to me, and understand where I'm coming from. So it got quite passionate. I won't say heated, but pretty intense at one stage. And, you know, I actually, because they accused me.
Can I ask you something?
Yeah.
Was this sort of in the physical or in the astral, in the mind, or?
Yeah, no, it was in the physical.
Okay.
Yeah, I was physically taken there. Okay. Yeah. And we got to the point where they accused me of wanting to be a god because I was saying I'm infinite. And I know I have an incredible range of skill sets that I'm bringing into this reality and what we're capable of as creator beings. And then they accused me of wanting to be a god. I said, I don't want to be a god. I said, I've already been a god. I know what it means to be a god. I've been one. In my journey through this universe, I've been what we label a god. Yeah. And in truth, so have you, Alfred, and so is pretty much everybody who's listening to this. If you are on that level of awareness and you're achieving what is really known as completion through this grand cosmic arena, which is what this earth at this point in time is about, then yeah, you've been one. Because if you haven't, then you haven't walked those shoes, then you don't understand that expression of life, then that still awaits you in your journey through this universe. If you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah.
So, because I did say before, you know, there are those of us who have been in this universe for a really long time, and we're pretty done. We've exhausted all possibilities and outcomes, all expressions of light, and it's time to exit the cosmic arena. It's like a graduation sort of process, but for me, I call it completion. That's what it feels like. And there's so many of us that are tired. We're spiritually tired. We know it. You know, this isn't just George on some weird sort of fantasy and tangent on his own. I get people from all over the world communicating with me who are fully in the same vibrational field of realization and knowing thyself as I am. We know this about ourselves, yeah? And it's not because they're hearing what I'm saying. Yeah, it's not because George told them. It's because most of them have known this throughout their lives, but they never actually found somebody out there expressing it in the way that they've felt throughout their life. And I'm actually articulating and languaging what they have felt throughout their life, whereas all this other doctrine and dogma and all these modalities out there, you know, we're really close, a lot of them, but not quite there. But I seem to be closer for these people who understand this about themselves. And I'm not saying I've got it all. Please, I'm not claiming that. But from my direct experience, there's a lot going on, you know, with the understanding of what's really taking place in this world. So I'm there in the Vatican having this debate, and they said, you know, you're claiming to be a god, and I said, no, I'm not, and I told them why, because I've been one, and then they said, your ego is so out of control. I said, ego? I said, hang on a minute. I said, you want to talk about ego? I said, yes, I have an ego, and I'm happily working and living with my ego and integrating it with my greater being. I'm absolutely doing that. Yes, I have ego, and I'm proud to have my ego, because you can't live in this reality without one. It's the personality interface of your incarnational experience, right? That's what ego is. You can't exist here without an ego. So I said, you want to talk about ego? You're God. Let's talk about your God, I said to them, because I know I'm infinite, and I've never been created. I've always existed. I always will be. There's no beginning to me, and there's no end to me. And that's what it truly means. That is the absolute ultimate truth of the reality of the infinite nature of life. And I said, your God is claiming to be the creator of all that is, all expressions of all life on every level, every reality, everything that's ever existed, ever on any level. Your God, one entity, claiming to be the creator of all of that. where in the truth there is no one anything in the infinite nature of life. There is no totality. It's open-ended. There's no one creator. So if you want to talk about egoic insanity, your God, I said, is suffering from the greatest egoic insanity that this universe has ever seen. And your God is not my maker. And that's when the meeting ended.
And there were no consequences to you in that meeting.
Well, okay. There's been attempts on my life on a number of occasions. Yeah. I've had direct threats, even from within a very senior member within the military industrial complex. And let me explain something. Let me explain why I'm still here. Okay. I have an agreement with my mother planet on a soul level to be incarnate on her body. And I know it, and she knows it. And that level of law, that level of agreement, is functioning on levels of reality that are so deep that all these other energies and entities up here on the more shallower levels of reality, functioning there, firing intentions from their, not only their earthly ego constructs, but also their cosmic ego constructs. They don't have the reach to out-muscle, out-maneuver, outdo that level of agreement. They don't have it. So I'm still meant to be here, so I will be here. Doesn't matter what anyone thinks they can do, what anyone would like to do, what anyone imagines is possible to do. They can't do it. I'm not going to get into today into individual experiences of attempts on my life because there's been several.
Right.
Yeah. And I can go into some of those, but I don't feel it's going to be appropriate.
Yeah. But I mean, there could have been positive consequences from that meeting. They could have had a realization and been transformed as well.
Well, that is the case in two of them. Yeah, in two of them. That is the case. Because they came up against something that, they really were convinced that the power that they're functioning from, the level of power they're functioning from, the level of capability and abilities that they thought they had, to be able to sequester me, apprehend me, and have me exactly where they want me, and then to go to make that final move, and then for me to just step into my power in that moment where I was just able to totally diffuse everything they were doing to me, and for me to just stand up and just speak to them with pure love and intention, freak them out. Like that, I don't know how to find the languaging to express how they felt, because I was feeling what they were feeling inside of themselves in that moment, because to do what I did, I was also very connected to them. So I'll share one experience. And I know I'll still to get to the point where I talk about how the galaxy was created, and I'll get to that. It just seems there's a lot of flow going on here in all the sorts of places. And
that's fine. That's fine.
Yeah. So I was lying in bed, and my higher self, my greater being, woke me up. It was about just before 3 in the morning. And my greater being said, roll over onto your tummy. So I rolled over onto my tummy. And I was laying there like this, and then I felt the presence of beings coming into my room and around me. And then I levitated up off the bed. And then I could see these little guys, and they weren't greys. And and they turned me around, and I was heading for my window, and I lived in a house at the time in Ashton in the Adelaide Hills of South Australia, and it was 2 foot thick stone walls, and another time before that when the Greys came in, the walls just shimmered and they just came marching in. So they take their reality with them wherever they go, but we build like submarines with a hard exoskeletal shell to contain our reality with us, like fuselages for planes. We take our reality from here and we take it up there into those atmospheric conditions, and we do it with hard edge technology, whereas they do it with blending of realities. See? So they can do it from behind this reality and move into this reality. And the military-industrial complex can do it too. That's how they abduct people now. The Manchurian Candidate was a classic example of that level of technology, and that was way back when. So I'm heading towards the window, and my thought was, this is going to be interesting. That's what entered into my mind. And then I went through the window, and the window was here, and I was halfway out the window, going through the window, the glass, like it wasn't there. And I remember looking down, and I saw this little guy looking up at me, and they were like little olive-skinned monkey-type people. They had round heads. They had they had eye sockets like ours. Round eye sockets. But the pupils, the balls were like ours. They weren't greys. And he smiled at me, and had lots of little teeth, lots of square little teeth. Really interesting. And their bodies, though, were like greys. They were skinny, but they didn't have long fingers like greys. And they were like a dark olive skin. And then he realised I was looking at him, and we had this sort of connection. He was a happy little guy, and he went like that and then knocked me out. And next thing, I found myself inside the moon.
Huh.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah. And, I shared this story a long time before someone else came out and talked about these little guys on the moon. And the gentleman's name was Jose Escamilla. And he said that he witnessed photos of these little monkey-type people on the moon. He was privy to actually seeing photos. And I haven't, because I don't do research, I haven't looked for those photos. But apparently he's seen them and they exist. And I just went, wow, he's the only other person I've heard talk about that type of being with the moon. Yeah, the only other person that I've heard. There may be others, but I haven't heard it. Not Grace, these little monkey guys. I don't know how else to call them. They stand about 3 foot high. Yeah, about that tall, 3.5 foot. And I was in a room on the bench, and the room was shaped like that, and then the wall went like that, and there was a long hallway down there. And it was a really interesting room because the walls were translucent on some sides, but solid like a grey on the other side. But the whole structure was living. It was a living mineral energy. And this is what when I hear people talking about concrete structures being built on the moon and all that, I don't agree with that. I'm going to say it. I've heard certain whistleblowers talk about concrete structures being built on the moon, and that that's not how things are created on the moon, because that reality can't handle the vibrational field of concrete. It's not, you don't do that in life. You don't. It would be, and the concrete won't last long. It'll break down very quickly, no matter what different compounds you try to put in it. It's the way things are worked out in other realities is it's got to be a vibrational match with the creational field of that reality. If there's not a vibrational match, you don't do it, because you're going to create such a disruption to that reality. You're going to sabotage your own existence very quickly, especially a place as fragile as the moon. You don't do that. So concrete does not exist in the moon. That is not a reality. Yeah. So I'm very, these are the little things I look for when I'm listening on the odd occasion, when I do listen to somebody. Okay. So everything, all the structure inside the moon is grown because the moon originally was built in the Pleiadian system, and there's a long story. That, again, if I go into this tangent now, it's going to be a very big one. So it is in my book, Our Universal Journey. I go into great detail about the moon. I actually call the chapters Her Story of the Moon because it's her story.
Okay.
Yeah. And I talk about the origins of the moon, who built it, why, and how it came to be around the Earth. I go into the whole thing. And so I'm on this bench, and all of a sudden my greater being starts to become present. More of me becomes present. And there was this energetic field around me I could feel just off my skin. And it was a little bit of warmth, like heat. And I got up, and the little guys just ran out of the room. They completely freaked out because I'm not supposed to get up. That's not meant to happen. And because I became so present and they were connected with me telepathically, they didn't want to be around because my energy was freaking them out too much. So they're kind of like, they do have a hive mentality. So the area within the hive that they operate in, I don't know if you've had much experience with hive mentalities. So in the area in the hive that they operate in, within that realm, within the hive, they have a very limited scope of knowledge and understanding because the hives are always compartmentalized, always. Yeah. And so there's different groups of collectives that have different hierarchical structures even within the greater collective of the hive mind. So all of a sudden I got hit with this barrage of energy because they were firing all this technology to cripple me, to disable me. And the heat got really intense. And I focused in on the, what I will call the head guy in the moon. It's a male entity. Well, it was back then. And we're talking 2006. Yeah.
Okay.
So back then, it was a male draconian lord that was in charge, was the head of operations in the moon at that time. And I'll get into his appearance in a moment. And I just focused in on that being, and I started walking towards him. And I was in a different state of capability, and I walked through the wall. So it's a living wall. So I connected with the wall. I explained to it I was going to move through it. This is all happening like that, right? Right. Yeah. And then I walked through the wall, this translucent wall. And then I started walking through more walls. And all of a sudden the technology just dropped away that was being beamed at me. And then I got hit with this other energy, and it was him directly one-on-one with me. And he was giving it everything he had. And I just kept following, I was tracking that energy. And I finally got to him, and there was another translucent wall between me and him. And I started communicating with him telepathically through the wall. And I said, you know, do you now understand? And I could see his shadow too. He just like slumped like that, and the energy fell away. And I said, do you truly understand now? And I said, I'm going to walk through that wall. And I did. I walked through that wall, and there he is in front of me. And this is the freaky thing. He looked like, you know, the Wraith Lords in Stargate Atlantis.
The Wraith?
Wraith. They have this species on Stargate Atlantis, and in that series, they're like an insect hybrid, humanoid hybrid. And they've got like this bony sort of structure on their faces, on the skeletal structure. That entity looked really similar to that, except this was Draco Origin, Draco humanoid.
I see.
And it also had a very long black sort of like clothing, like an overcoat thing, and long straight hair, very similar to the Wraith. When I saw Stargate Atlantis, I jumped out of my chair. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
That someone had gotten an identity, physical appearance so close, even though they were portraying a different species. It was really amazing. So when I walked through that wall, once again, I made that statement, do you now understand? And he went, yes. And what I was getting him to acknowledge was, and this is really important in this moment, Alfred, what I was getting him to acknowledge was when we as a species truly step into our power, truly become our authentic nature, and what we truly are, not what everyone else tells us we are, but what we truly are as humane beings, yeah? As fractals of the universe, as a sum total of everything we've seen, done, and been in this universe. When we embody that fully integrated self, there is nothing they can do to stop us. Nothing, Alfred. They got nothing. I want you to know that. I want everybody who's listening to this, I want you to know, I want you to remember how powerful you are. I so want you to know that about yourself. And that sent a ripple through the empire. I get very passionate about this stuff. So I walked up to him after that and I hugged him. I opened up my heart center and I completely enveloped him and tracked him back through his journey in the universe. Remember, this wasn't the personality of George doing this. This was my greater being doing this, running the whole show. I was just an observer, really. I was somewhat an experiencer and as an observer of my greater being in action. And we've all had tastes of our greater beings in action in this reality, you know, when freak things happen and go, oh, an angel saved me or God saved me. No, it was your greater being that saved you. That's who it really was, you know. Or you're an athlete and you go into the zone, yeah, and you do this miraculous feat in that moment, and you've never been able to achieve that again. But the feeling that you had in that moment, everything was just in perfect synchronicity. It was effortless, and it all just went so smoothly, and it happened. That's it. You got a taste of what you're capable of how you really should be. All right, that's how it works. So, you know, I got big doses of that because of my responsibilities in the exopolitical and cosmopolitical arena. So I've had a lot of this stuff going on in my life. And it's like in Star Wars when the Jedi say, you know, you're just in that flow and you're just one with, you know, reality and life around you. Well, it's, you know, it is. It's all relationship and you're just flowing beautifully in that moment. And it's amazing what you're capable of. Well, there isn't anything you're not capable of in that moment. But you work in conjunction with what's appropriate for the unfoldment of that reality that you're actually a part of in that moment. So I tracked him back through everything he's seen, done, and being, and reminded him of who he was because he was so encapsulated in that draconian empire and was functioning from a very limited level of awareness of self. And then I felt his whole demeanor just melt, and he just slumped. So I just let him go. He fell to the floor. I turned around and then I bilocated back to my room. And yeah, and then I had to integrate. George had to come to terms with what he just experienced. And Amazing. It was a very, very profound experience, that one. I want people to know that they know. They're terrified of us, Alfred. They are absolutely terrified. And when I explain how the galaxy was built and why, it's going to take things to another level again as to why there are so many groups interested in us. So this call goes out in the galaxy, and there was a group of beings that heard the call. And I'll call them the gods. I'm going to use that label. They didn't hear the call. But there was a lot of us who I will call, and I'm going to do the us and them thing just to paint the picture, okay? that I will call the ancients or the elders. Now, don't ask me for numbers. There's a lot, thousands, but I don't know how many. So I'm not talking about some elite council group, or this isn't an ego trip. There's those of us who have been in this universe from the very beginning. We've been here a very, very long time, and we're getting tired, really, really tired. And yeah, by the way you reacted, then I you feel it too. And you'd be surprised how many people feel this inside of themselves. We're pretty much done. And we heard the call, and the call was for the creation of a new reality, and a new reality which was going to be now I'm going to talk in linear time terms or chronological terms. An exit strategy. It was like it was a way out of the grand cosmic arena, and that was why everybody was so excited who heard the call, because this part of our being had been immersed in this grand cosmic arena for eons of time. Yeah, there's no we're not talking 100 billion years. We're not talking 100 trillion years. There are no numbers that can count in truth how long this universe has been around for. And there's others that are way older, but this one and its expression we call light, which is a universe of contrasting expressions, because it's waveform universe, a vibrational universe. It's been around for a very long time. So the call goes out, and we heard the call, and we all gathered and had a meeting. Over time, beings started gathering, and the knowing comes from within you. It's like a soul calling. And when the soul calls, you can't ignore it. I know there's people who've had that in their lives, know that about themselves. And once your soul calls you to do something, you honestly cannot ignore it. And so we had this meeting, and we gathered, and we understood what was required, and we knew that the universal creator was going to be in direct experience with us in this creative process, which was really exciting. And we're going to build a new galactic reality. But the difference about this galactic reality was it was a big project. Lots of beings were involved in it, even though in every galactic reality there's a lot of beings involved. But this one was, the elders were called in, those who heard the call were called in, and the prime creator energy of that galactic reality was going to be the divine feminine expression of the universal creator itself. That's why we call the Milky Way galaxy the Milky Way, because it's the nurturing of the mother's milk.
Mm-hmm.
And this other group didn't hear the call. So we said to them, we said that we better have a meeting with these other guys because they're not here. And because we function with integrity and transparency, we want to let them know what we're doing. Yeah. So we called a meeting with them, and they could only be in that space of, you're making this up. This is a move to outmaneuver us, to take control of the cosmic arena. And the whole time their cosmic egos became inflated, incensed, and they made a vow that they will do everything in their power to stop us every step of the way, to sabotage us every step of the way. And the beauty in that? Here's the magic in this equation. Yeah? That, in that moment, set up all the programs of resistance, all the challenges that were going to be before us. So all that alchemical process and all that learning and all the wisdom that was going to be gained from that, it set it up in that moment. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
So we started creating this galaxy in conjunction with the Divine Mother. So the way we did it was, we went to another galactic being, galactic reality, and if you look at a galaxy itself, And we're talking hundreds of billions of star systems in a galaxy, and that's a small one. And then we're talking about countless planets around all those star systems. We're talking about all the flora in those countless planetary systems, all the fauna, all the aquatic kingdoms, the insect kingdoms. It's just the mind. You try to wrap your mind around that, and over billions of years of existence. So imagine how much life we're talking about, how much experience we're talking about, how much knowledge, how much wisdom, how much energy over billions of years of a galactic reality, all the interaction of all different species, and all the paramount, what is known as paramount incarnational species. So we're the paramount incarnational species for this planet, right? And each reality that gets created has a paramount species because that's the main point of focus. And the reality around it is supporting it to have its experience. So you take that galactic reality and all that energy over all those billions of years, and you then ask it to express itself as a single star system. So we're talking a massive amount of compression here.
Mm-hmm.
Serious compression. Then you take that star system and you insert it in this galaxy. Then you go to another galactic reality and you do the same. Everything it has seen, done, and experienced over billions of years, trillions of years, you compress that. You asked it to express itself in a very dense and compressed way as a star system, and you insert that in this galaxy. And another one, and another one. And you take all the galactic systems that exist, you compress them into stars, and you insert them in this galaxy. And that's why this reality is so dense.
Mm.
It's so dense compared to other areas of the universe. That's what the density is about.
Mm.
It's not because we're at the bottom of the universe. It's because we're in the galactic womb of the Divine Mother.
Mm.
And it's a fractal process. It's what I called in the book the road to compression. It's a pathway into 0 point, into integration. Because the intention is to take everything we have seen, done, and been in this universe and start integrating it all into a unified expression.
Mm-hmm.
So the way people then incarnated into these realities was, in a given galactic reality, was then the elders of that galactic reality, the ones that were, I don't think chosen is the right expression, but the ones that had the knowledge, had the wisdom, and had the capacity and the skill sets to be the representatives of that galactic reality, embody everything that galaxy has to offer, and then have an incarnational experience into the star system. So they entered into the core of that galaxy and then came out of the core of the star system and then expressed themselves out into that star system. In the beginning, they stayed within the confines of the star itself and had incarnational experiences on the star itself in other dimensional realms, but on the star, what we see as stars, right? They're actually bodies of light. And if you go into those high vibrational fields, you'll experience them as realities like this one. So similar to this one is really unique. Just got to get my languaging right around that. And so then the planetary beings were formed, and then they projected from the stars into the planetary systems, and that's when they started having their incarnational experiences more into the galactic arena. And then because there was many differences out there and you had intergalactic wars, different empires, blah, 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 now it was kind of, everything was compressed. So the tension between both races now were amplified because they became more intense because they're more compressed. And also the differences had to be sorted out because you're much closer to each other now.
Right.
So after a while, this massive war breaks out in our galaxy. And the finishing touches of that war, even though it's kind of still going now here in this solar system, was in the Orion system, in the Orion League, facilitated what was the greatest battle of this entire galactic conflict. And that's why so many people love Star Wars so much. Because the Star Wars, when it first came out, was really explaining what took place during the Orion conflict. And it triggered that memory in so many people, you know, and especially because there was many of us who were involved in that who are incarnated now on the planet. Amazing how many of us. So after this Orion conflict took place, there was now, through the creative process, we needed to build a star system, which is going to be the next step along in the fractal process. So now what we did was we asked each one of all of the stars in this galaxy. Remember, each star is a compressed version of every galaxy out there. So we asked all the stars of this galaxy now to totally integrate into a unified field of love and express themselves as one star. And that is our sun. And the being who's facilitating that process is the divine masculine of the universal creator. And then there was 12 main planetary systems that were created here in the solar system. And the reason there were 12 is because we took all the genetic groupings out there and we got it down to 12 main genetic groupings. And here's a real kicker. You've heard of the 12 tribes of Israel.
Right.
Yeah? Well, how's this one? What does the word Israel mean?
Israel.
It's a statement in the affirmative. Is Penn, is Alfred, is George. The languaging in those days, that's how it was.
Yeah.
The statement in the affirmative. And the 12 tribes of the sun. And so once we understand that fractalization process of our genetic lineage as well, so to speak. So then there was a war that broke out in the solar system, because once this place became populated in that way, and the amount of energy that was now flowing into this galaxy, into the solar system, yeah? And then there was another planet that was being formed here, apart from the 12 that were here, past tense, yeah? It's not the case now, there's not 12 here now, was the Earth was being formed. And then all of the 12 groups, genetic groupings, were then brought to the Earth. That was the next step along. But during that process too, the gods caught wind because of the amount of energy that was flowing into these realities. They couldn't help themselves anymore. They couldn't hold off from coming, and the incessant need to conquer. Because once they entered an aspect of themselves into the galactic reality to directly interfere, because it got to the point where they couldn't not directly interfere anymore, then they're in. Because once you're in this process, the fractal process, you're in. It's a one-way path. There's no going back out, yeah? Because you're in this integrative process. So with their personalities of ambition and conquering out there being pretty strong, once they came into this galactic reality, well, that whole thing just got amplified 1,000-fold, right? So they became tyrants, yeah? Conquering tyrants, just amazing. And don't forget, we've all played these roles as well in our journeys. We've all been conquerors and tyrants, and we've been very loving and caring beings as well. We've played all sides of the spectrum. But in this drama here, I'm just explaining to you what's going on. So it's a bit of an us and them sort of play going on. And they then wanted to come and take control of the solar system, because they wanted control of the Earth. Because a planet was then being created that was going to be a fractal of the solar system. And the solar system's a fractal of the galaxy. And the galaxy is a fractal of the universal cosmic arena. So this planet is a fractal of the universe.
Hmm.
And then we created an incarnational species, which is a fractal of the planet.
Mm-hmm.
So here you have an incarnational species, because look, the cells in your bodies, in our bodies, are galaxies, and the atoms are the star systems. We are walking universes. Now, just think about that for a moment. What does that mean? If we are a fractal of the universe, what does that truly mean? It means we have access to all of the realities. It means we have access to all of our creations out there, our galactic realities, our planetary systems, our star systems. It means we have access to all timelines because we are the universe and the universe is us. How fascinating, huh? And that makes us genetically the number one commodity in the universe. And once we understand that, Alfred, the whole exopolitical arena and cosmopolitical arena opens up to a whole new ballgame. And the incessant need for these empires to come here and send all these different factions, because I want to get into what I'm calling factional alignment. This is the problem we have in the exopolitical arena right now, Alfred, with the military-industrial complex, with secret societies, with all these different interest groups. The problem we have is factional alignment. They're aligning themselves with different factions coming at us from, it's one overall empire, but even that empire has got factions within it. And this is a very real problem. Mm-hmm. Because when you connect to the natural order, what I call the organic communities, yeah, mm-hmm. Then what we're connecting with is another spike of energy just came in. I apologize for the pause. Has to do with the Israel thing. I've just got to clear something up. So when we connect with the organic communities, everything I just shared with you about the fractal process, about why this reality was created, I left out the part about the planetary mother also being the divine feminine expression of the universal creator, directly incarnating as this planet. And that's a really big deal because, we're in the planetary womb of the divine mother. And we've been in this fractal path, bringing everything that we've seen, done, and being, and we're integrating it. Our internal arena is the final integration point. The mind is the final battlefront. That is the final battlefield, because I can't take us on in the heart. So this arena here is the final frontier for them to start. This is the last hope they've got, is through that. It's through the mind. And that's why the pursuit of consciousness on the planet right now is the number one thing. Mm. All this consciousness enlightenment. Everyone, that's the buzzword, isn't it? Mm-hmm. So we've got to be careful. I'm not saying consciousness is evil. Consciousness, I have my own mind. My mind is an essential part of my being. But what is my mind operating with? Is it operating under the auspice and the guidance of my sovereign soul expression? Or is it functioning under doctrine? Is it inside these programs of paradigms and doctrine? Because 99.9999999% of the human population is under this influence of doctrine, one way or another. Societal programming, cultural programming, religious programming, dare I call it educational programming. It's all programming. Mind control from the black monoliths. I mean, I think Stanley Kubrick was trying to tell us something, all the black monoliths, right? Where you go into every home, there's a black monolith on the wall. And at the end of the movie, they're all worshipping the black monolith. So it's really kind of interesting that how much time we spend in front of these black monoliths, and how much programming is actually taking place. So we need to, instead of everything going this way, we need to turn inside out. So my mind is getting its instructions from my heart soul essence here, if I'm going to have a physical location for it, yeah? And it emanates spherically out in all directions from here. So this I had to bring in entrainment with that, because this was entrained by all that out there, yeah? So we need to bring our minds back. These are our minds. And I challenge people just to sit there and just allow their mind to be and just watch it, observe it flow. And then you realize you're having all these thoughts you didn't will to have.
Hmm.
And that's another big story in itself, because that is the mind matrix at work, the mind net, I call it. So like our computers are plugged into the internet, and this is what one of the things I saw up there in the moon was this artificial intelligence. It's a very powerful being, and we shouldn't underestimate what this thing is capable of. I'm not saying this to put fear into people, to make them feel powerless and helpless. The opposite. Because if we realize that we are a fractal of the universe, and we realize that what we're capable of and tapping into, then all of a sudden it's like, wow, that means the control systems that are being thrown at us are the best that exist in the universe. And they are. They're coming at us from every possible conceivable angle, Alfred.
When just to get down on it, to make sure that everyone watching this really comprehends, what do you mean by the word fractal?
So we have two words, fractal and fraction. Yeah. So when we talk about a fraction, because that seems to be the confusion whenever I explain this, people confuse the two words together. A fraction is a part of, a piece of, an aspect of. But a fractal is the entire expressing itself in a more condensed form.
Now, I'm just trying to explore this more. There's a principle of the hologram, and one of the principles is that each part of the hologram contains the whole. Is that different from the fractal?
No, that's fractalization.
I see. Okay, got it. Got it. Yeah. So we're dealing with fractal principles. Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
And this galaxy,
principles.
Yeah. So our incarnational construct, the planet, the solar system, and the entire galaxy are the fractal realities in this universe. The first ones.
Well, this is let me take you on a little stroll through what we've been talking about, just to ask a question. One phrase that came up that you mentioned, that came across very powerfully, that you used, was completion. That you feel that you've reached a phase of completion. So what's next?
Yeah, good question. So in my journey through this grand cosmic arena, it's all about, first of all, it's about the sense of adventure. And it's a beautiful essence to have, because that is what I also experienced throughout into the infinite nature of life. It's the one theme that runs through all life is adventure, a sense of adventure. And there's a lot in that. Then the other one is my intention for entering this universe. The intention for me entering this universe and integrating with the universal creator was to understand what it is to express itself in this way, through what we call light, energy. What is that? Because in the infinite nature of life, we express ourselves, and the labeling system is we express ourselves as universal beings. So beyond this universe, out there, there's all multitude of other universes, countless, and you have your universe, Alfred, out there. And we are inside of you because we really love your universal expression. And we're journeying and exploring through your universal reality to learn the way you're expressing yourself as that universal being. Because we want to learn how to do that too. So that's why we're in this part of us is in this one. Yeah. While we're also in yours. And while you're being that universal being, you're also in my universe, and you and I are also in this one. Yeah. So, because when I reintegrated in 2003 with my soul, and the soul is the gateway to our infinite nature beyond this universe. When I was integrating my infinite nature, I got to see outside in what I call the omniverse. Yeah. And out there is all these countless universes, and I was seeing all the streams of energy going from all those universes into this one as well, and into all the other universes. So all the beings who are universal creators out there are also in this one experience, and in all the other ones as well at the same time. So I entered this universe to understand light, to learn this waveform pattern of expression, this universe of contrasting expressions. And because I want to learn how to create through this expression. So it's kind of like a school, like a learning, you could say. At the same time, it's an adventure. The interesting thing about this universe is, because, okay, they're all unique, but this one's really unique is because it's a universe of contrasting expressions. And I know I just repeated that many times, but it's so important. Oh, this pen you might see with this pen. This is as simple as it gets. A sine wave. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So here we have the initial expression.
Yeah.
But then if we stop there, we're out of balance. So then we have to have another expression, which is the alter ego of the initial expression, which then brings us back into balance in the center.
Right.
So you can look at it like that. You can look at it like that. You can look at it like that. And you go one way, and then you have to go the other way, and then back into the center. And then you do it again, and then again, and that's when vibration starts. Right. And that was the birth of light. And that was the moment we entered the universe. That's what we did. Yeah. And this is really unique because you can get lost in expressing yourself more this way than that way, or more that way than that way, for up to eons of time. Eventually come out, right? No one's ever trapped in something forever. But you can, because you're off center and you're not in your integrated state, you can get lost into something in this universe. It's really interesting the way it works. And it provides challenges like no other universe, because what you're experiencing is internal division. And no other universe supports that. No other universe facilitates internal division. This one does. So when you are functioning from internal division, you have got a whole range of possibilities of becoming caught up in pockets of self, aspects of self, and then you can be deluded into thinking that is the whole, when it's not. So in my journey through this universe, I learned all the different expressions of life, because I was one of the early ones to enter, and we exhausted all possibilities and outcomes. We're also known as the ancients, the elders, blah, 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 whatever, whatever. And we are now, because we also were responsible for co-creating this fractal path, this fractal process, we also entered inside of it. So we're not better than anybody else. We're in the process with everybody else, whilst at the same time our beings are facilitating it from beyond, which is really, really challenging, to say the least. And so there's a massive group of people in this world, and again, got no idea of the numbers, coming across them all the time, who know that we are achieving completion, that we're done with this cosmic arena. We're tired, you know, and what we're heading towards is all our experiences through all the different dimensions of the universe, which I've got a chart here, which hierarchically speaking, this is how I map it out.
That looks
and again, that's in my book. And this is what I call the grand cosmic arena down here, down there. And this is what's known as the great void in the universe.
Okay.
And I've got all these little lines just as an example of the kind of amount of dimensional realities. Of course, there's millions and billions of them, but that's just to give people an idea how big the fourth dimension is and how many different levels of realities there can be in just the fourth dimension alone. And for me, that's the top of the fourth there, which, mind you, in other people's models, this is the universe itself.
Yeah.
Yeah? And then up here, there's another kind of void, which isn't as severe as this one, but this is what I call the realms of the highest self. And we've got the nursery of the souls, and then this is, you know, we're completely unified up here. So beyond the great void, up here, technology does not exist. Yeah? No technology up here. No illness, no disease, no such thing as healers because there's no disease. Down here is where all that stuff exists. And down here in this grand cosmic arena is what quantum physics talks about as the parallel universes. So in here is what's known as the multiverse. Just to give you an indication of the magnitude of what it is I'm talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So what I know as the multiverse, all the parallel universes, because they're all other light-based universes, right?
Right.
That's what the multiverse is made out of. Other universes constructed in the same fabric as this one. But the omniverse is out here.
Yeah.
Out here, yeah? Because this entire thing is the light-based universe. And out here is the omniverse and the infinite nature of life. And this being is the creator of this. So there's the creator of this universe, yes. And our existence in this universe is a co-creation. It is my soul is a co-creation with the creator of this universe. Because when I entered in to this universe, that's when soul was created, because it's where the creator and I are totally unified as one. Now, beyond here, I go to my infinite nature, beyond soul. And spirit and consciousness are projections from soul down into the creative process of the universe.
Now, what is the expression of you beyond soul?
The only way I can language that is it's my infinite nature. It's like an awareness. You can call it an intelligence. If I'm going to use labels, it's an isness. It has no name. I can only use descriptives. And you can experience it in this. I experience it in this life. I know I'm infinite. And I experience my infinite nature here. And I'm bringing more of that infinite nature into this life. And because I'm in harmony with the natural creator of this universe. You see, there's the creator of this universe, and then there's God of religions. God is not the creator. God is the entity claiming to be the creator. And the sooner we get away from the word God, then the better off we're all going to be. Because that word was given to the masses and implanted into the psyche of the masses by King James under the influence of the priestly caste. And each time that word is uttered, vibrational words are patterns of vibrations and energy. And people will attribute, they go, thank God. Well, why? Why are you thanking that entity for your creative process in that moment? and the co-creative process with the other beings and Mother Earth and the sun and the galaxy and the universal creator? Why are you attributing that energy to that entity? And it's the greatest deception that has been imposed on humanity. That's why I went to the Vatican, to have it out with the priests and their God. And I mean, Christ warned us about the Pharisees and their deity, but here we are.
Right now, but just because I'm just a bit confused, you use the term universal creator, and that's another term that has traditionally been used for God. So
God is a name.
Yeah, but I mean,
God is not a descriptive.
the concept of universal creator, the concept that they've used for, in some traditions they use G*D because you're not supposed to create a word or something. So, but I think that you were making a slightly different term. You were saying that some dude came in here and is putting on an act, but that's different than identify. That's not the universal creator.
God is not the universal creator.
Yeah. Now, okay, let's start out because I'm a bit confused as to your terminology. I must admit.
Yeah.
In your terminology, what is the universal creator?
It is the being that created this universe.
The being that created this universe. Okay, now, and in my terminology, that would be the spiritual dimensions, i.e., it would be the collective of the universe, of the intelligent civilization of souls, spiritual beings, and source.
Correct.
It's a collective effort. Boom.
I wholeheartedly agree.
Yeah. Now, okay, so I've got that. Now, who is this God, G-O-D, that's out there in the,
Yes, also known as Allah,
Judea,
also known as Yahweh.
Yeah, Judeo-Christian Islamic tradition.
Also known as Shiva.
Okay.
Yeah, every culture has been infiltrated. Every culture. And the lines are so...
Buddhists say...
Yep. In my book, I explain about the natural Buddha
and
the religious Buddha.
Okay.
There's two different Buddhas.
Okay, good. So lead us on this journey of discovery.
So why we have the pursuit of consciousness on the planet at the moment as the number one thing to do for spiritual enlightenment, is because my ego personality of George the ego construct does not reside in the heart. Yeah, it resides in the mind. The mind is the ecosystem and the environment that nourishes ego. It's its ecosystem. It can't live anywhere else. Yeah. And you may have heard me before when I said this translates to consciousness, cosmically speaking.
Right.
And this translates to soul.
Yeah.
Now, what we're dealing with is mind enlightenment. Okay? We're not dealing with the enlightenment of the being. Yeah? The narrative on the planet, its sole focus is mind enlightenment via what I come out and clearly state. And I've had so much backlash because I'm exposing this, Alfred. So much backlash. You'd be surprised because people are religious fanatics, right? It's commonly known as the third eye. It's the pineal gland. The pineal gland, Alfred, is a biological implant.
Right.
Now, people will just think that is the most outlandish thing anyone has ever said. truly. And I get where they're coming from. And I have, here where I live, it's a very eclectic area, you know, and I sit down and I have the most wonderful, you know, conversations, and I'll say debates, but really respectful ones, yeah, with people. In regards to that, because they are teachers of the chakra system, they are teachers of the pineal gland, they disseminate doctrine,
Mm-hmm.
spiritual practices, ritualistic practices, all to do with chakras, kundalini, pineal. Now, in my book, I actually expose that system, that three-way system, as the deception,
Mm-hmm.
as the deceptive path to enlightenment, because that is mind enlightenment and it's the pursuit of consciousness. Because this God entity, what it is made up of, okay? So I'm going to explain to you now who and what is God.
Okay.
Yeah, and yes, there is an answer. It's like, well, no, there's never been an answer. Well, no, yes, there is an answer to that. For real, there is an answer to that. And remember I said there's the universal creator and then there's this God entity, yeah? The God of religions. We're dealing with two very distinct different things, because remember, we're dealing, Alfred, with a universe of contrasting expressions.
Right.
Right? So whenever you've got one of something, you must have the alter ego of that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in this universe, we have the natural creator of this universe. So because you've got that, then you must have a being who's not of this universe who will then claim to be the creator. It's an inherent, built-in part of the program of the very nature of this universe. You can't have one thing without the other. Alter egos of everything in existence. That's the unique nature of this universe. Hence the challenges that are spawned out of the very nature of this universe, right? We're challenged in every way possible in our journey through this universe. That's why it's so unique. Yeah. It is the greatest learning anyone can ever hope to embark on, is journeying through this universe. So we have an entity, because a lot of people talk about, ego and earthly ego, and you get these self-righteous ET groups that come along and look at your egos and blah, 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 blah. You know, let alone them judging us from their ET ego level, right? But let's not talk about that for them, right? So what we're dealing with here is cosmic ego. We all have, not only do I, as George, have my personality ego construct for this reality, but I've had incarnations in Sirius and Orion, the Pleiades, and, you know, many other star systems, right? And each one of my incarnational constructs there has an ego construct for that incarnational experience in that reality. I have a personality interface for each one. So when you come across an extraterrestrial, you're dealing with an ego construct for that incarnational experience that that soul is having in that reality, yeah? Dealing with those vibrational fields and those perceptions of reality through its own cultural programs, through its own spiritual doctrine from within that culture. And we've got to get out of this subservient habitual nature that just because somebody comes along with an extraterrestrial craft, and they're so more technically advanced than what we are, that they are superior to us. Please. We've so got to get out of that. Because the agenda to diminish who and what we are is so powerful. You know, we've been so diminished, it's unbelievable. So what we're dealing with is an ego construct that resides in consciousness, because that's the ecosystem and the environment for the grandest ego construct that can exist in this universe, because we are talking about an ego construct that resides in universal mind energy. And that's what this God entity is. It is pure mind. It is pure consciousness. And it is androgynous in its nature. And you have the God in the masculine and the goddess in the feminine. And then you have the priestesses and the priests. And this is the hierarchy we're up against. And you have the patriarchy and the matriarchy. And the people that are in that structure are vehemently supporters of those structures. And they are religious fanatics, basically, without realizing it. And this entity is imposing itself here because it is insanely jealous, because it's self-deluded into believing it's the one. And it's amassed in this universe a massive, massive amount of paradigms and realities, dimensional realities. It's created its own version of light. It's created its own version of love. You know, this entity is no dummy. And I really, I'm doing the best I can to help people awaken into the reality of what it is we're dealing with. Because when we lose respect for what it is we're up against, we're in trouble. Because any general will tell you when it comes to war that the moment you disrespect your opponent, they've got you. You're toast. So what we have is, this picture probably doesn't do it enough justice. Yeah. What we have is, in that universal construct, here in the grand cosmic arena, I'll try and get that as close as I can. I call that the synthetic universe, because this God entity has gone about creating its own version of light and started creating its own version of the universe. And it's infiltrated the grand cosmic arena in all its dimensional levels. It hasn't infected the whole grand cosmic arena, but it's been able to reach into every dimensional reality within the grand cosmic arena. And the vibrational field of energy that it's created, when you come across races that are from that energetic field, you can feel it. There's a distinct difference of the foundational expression of where these beings are coming from. So when I come across an entity, for example, in my exopolitical travels and what have you, the first thing I do, Alfred, is you go straight into the source of intention, right? You go straight for the source of intention, because everything that emanates from that being, what's the source of that emanation? Where's it coming from? And then you understand where its intentions are emanating from. So you can feel it out. You can feel the vibrational field. It'll have a mean harmonic. Then you can go deeper and you can go into individualized harmonic series of expression from that being. You can go into its mind field. You can go into its physical body. You can go into its what technology it's got relationship with. And you can understand the fields of technology it's functioning with.
Right. So what you're saying is that the, quote, God of the Bible, the God of the Quran, the God of the Old and New Testament, the God of that exists historically in the matrix here, that is an entity that is continuing to try and manifest itself in different ways to exert a form of control which is not a true source of control.
Yeah. And it's created its own version of that.
Right.
Own version of that waveform.
Now, is that God in your imagination, is that an organic entity or an artificial intelligence entity? I'm just asking.
That's a very good question. The AI malevolent AI spawned out of the synthetic universe.
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Malevolent AI spawned out of the synthetic universe.
Right.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'd like to do. Can we do a pause just for a moment? I like to print something, which will make it easier. for me to share.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you can go ahead and do that. And,
All right.